We all need Canada's youth to succeed. We need youth to help design drones to put out forest fires and ensure artificial intelligence doesn't outsmart us all. We need youth to help cure the diseases we don't even know exist yet.
We need new skills
for a completely new job force.
But we're not prepared.
That's why RBC created Future Launch, to empower Canadian youth for the jobs of tomorrow.
Like people, businesses have their journey, their path, sometimes straight, but more often evolving, growing, and adapting. And like people, businesses' needs change, creating the need for knowledge in areas like accounting, consulting, and tax. Areas critical to your continued growth and success, all part of the journey, and all part of what we do together with you. So that when your business has arrived, it's ready to keep going. MNP, wherever business takes you.
Welcome to Python's Pit. Hi. Hi, Gurjog. Welcome to Python's Pit. It's great to have you here today, and congratulations for getting so far in the competition.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
I think you'll enjoy pitching to the Pythons today.
Yeah, for sure.
So, as you know, you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
I think they're ready. I think you're ready. So,
Yeah,
the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks. Hey, Pythons. So, I was looking through my parents' cabinet, and look what I came across. These smartphones, just lying there, not even being used. Many people leave their smartphones in their drawers or pass them on to their siblings, as there's no safe method to actually sell their own smartphone. So, for the smartphone users that are looking for a safer and convenient way to convert their phones into cash, we have created Buy Mine. Buy Mine is projected to be an automated machine that instantly appraises and purchases your phone. The machine will look like a vending machine, about 2 meters tall and half a meter wide. The user will be guided throughout the machine using a touchscreen process. And to create a machine like this, it would cost about $20,000. Now, there are other methods to sell your phone. You could always use Kijiji, but that would involve meeting an unknown person and figuring out a certain time and location that meets both of your schedules. We're here to completely revolutionize that method with BuyMine. Now, we would like to start off with first opening one machine in square one, and so our target would be anyone within 20 kilometers, any smartphone user within 20 kilometers of the region. And from there, that would be around 200,000 people. Given that Canada has about 25 million smartphone users, we can keep expanding into other cities in the GTA. Our average phone cost will be about $450. And that's if we hope to buy about 25 phones a day, and that's about 750 phones a month. And that would cost about $330,000 to buy those phones. And since we're giving these companies direct access to these phones and they don't have to waste money actually looking for them, we hope that they could pay a bit more to actually buy them. So we're hoping to have a 20 to 40% markup on each phone based on the condition and the overall style. And that would give us about $400,000 to $460,000 in sales. You're probably wondering, well, how are we going to resell these phones after we buy them? There's 3 different methods of doing so. If the phones cost from anywhere between $0 to $100, we plan to ship them to recycling companies that can sell the individual parts. For phones that cost between $100 to $300, we plan to ship them to developing countries where there's actually a need for these types of phones. In fact, 30% of India's smartphone sales actually come from used phones. And for smartphones worth above $300, we plan to sell them to our local consumers through in-store and online sales. Now, I would like to run the day-to-day activities of this business, but I would need a couple people by my side to help run the activities and the technical skills. My cousin is a software engineer who would be helping me out with the coding part of the program, as well as I would need to hire 2 other computer programmers. Their technical skills will be quite needed for this business. And so we would need the funds so we can pay these software engineers to start experimenting the programs and see if such a program can be made that we can actually authenticate your smartphone and make sure that when you plug it into the USB in the phone machine, it's actually a verified Samsung or Apple smartphone. Pythons, let's stop wasting these precious smartphones. I think it's time to give people some quick cash. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Very, very well done. You know, years ago, people used to pay a lot more for computers and then have to resell them. And there were similar models to this. So it's had a history, and with the price points of phones, you might be onto something. So, Kelly, welcome to Python's Pit.
Thank you.
We had a really awesome day today. We saw all kinds of presentations.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm with RBC Wealth Management. I'm a vice president and portfolio manager there. We work with families, creating wealth management plans and portfolios for individuals and businesses.
Great. So what attracted you to Python's Pit? What kind of intrigued you about it?
Well, I've watched Python's Pit from the sidelines for several years, and from the audience, I just saw how crisp the presentations were and how polished these young entrepreneurs were. And I just really wanted to be part of that. So when I was asked to be a Python, I was humbled and honored to be part of that important process.
So Kelly, how did you find the experience today?
I was not knowing what to expect, being a Python, being on the other side of the camera this time around. It was a great experience. Again, very impressive pitches. They didn't disappoint. And I thought just working with the other Pythons and hearing some of their questions and their thoughts was just so impressive.
Was there anything particular with the presentations? What inspired you in terms of what the kids were able to present?
I think the inspiring thing is the innovation that these kids are bringing to the table. These are unique ideas. They're things I haven't heard of or thought of, and it's always one of those things, oh, why didn't I think of that? And the simplest ideas sometimes are the best. And they're really well researched. They've done their homework, they're for such young people, very, very impressive.
So they're obviously in a progressive place. They're moving forward. What advice would you give them? What key pieces of advice might you think they would help them in terms of moving forward?
Well, I think the first piece of advice, and this is the important thing with Python's Pit, why it's so great, is the mentoring process before the pitches even begin. So I think look for a mentor, learn from successful people. A piece of advice I have given my kids many times is there are no bad decisions, just more decisions. So, make a decision. You're usually looking at limited information and a time constraint. So you have to make a decision and just know there's going to be another one after that and another one. And be confident in making those decisions and don't look back. Always be just looking forward. Another piece of advice would be do first things first. So really focus on your objectives, set your objectives, and do the most important things that are going to take you there.
So Python's Pit, we had a great time today. How do you think Python's Pit fits into supporting entrepreneurship and youth in our local community?
Well, I think innovation is very important to our economy, and I think Python's Pit is providing the stage for this. Being able to provide mentors is a very important part of this, and and fostering this in young kids at the earliest opportunity is critical.
So the most important question is, would you do it again? And secondly, if somebody asked you about what your experience was like, and would you recommend it to them?
I would do it again. It was, another piece of advice I'd give a young person, get out of their comfort zone. And, you don't grow unless you're out of your comfort zone. So, this was definitely, out of most people's comfort zone, I think. So, yes, I would do it again. It was a great experience. And I would recommend it to other people.
Super. Thank you very much for helping today. We had a great day, and your contribution was terrific. So
thank you. Thank you.
So let's hear what the Pythons have to say. Let's start with Kelly. Kelly?
Thank you. Great presentation and really innovative idea. I do have actually a couple of smartphones lying around.
That's
various conditions of disrepair. But what about the data that's on those smartphones?
That's a good question.
So
what we thought of is we're not going to ask somebody to type in their passcode and then from there just give us access to your whole phone. A lot of people have privacy concern with that. So what we're going to do is after they plug in their phone into the USB, as long as we provide a pop-up message that asks for their permission to run diagnostics, it can be done without unlocking the phone itself, because when you plug in a phone into the USB, it can actually see the software from there. So if we run this software test from there, it wouldn't be affecting the data at all.
But if I deposit my phone in the machine, then
it would erase the data. We would erase the data. Yeah. Because after you deposit the machine, you're almost saying that you're fine with giving us your phone and doing whatever with it. So you would plug in your password from there, and then we could erase the file.
I'm going to ask you around the technology. How confident are you that just plugging it in will give you a whole full assessment of the phone? I guess the guts of the phone too, but then there's also the screens in the back and all that.
Yeah. So what we're planning to do is for the physical condition, like the outside, in the machine itself, there's going to be like a glass box that has a scanner, and the scanner would keep rotating after you put in the phone at the USB. And then afterwards, we'd ask you to take it out and flip the phone and see the upsides. So that scanner, it actually can see if there's damages or scratches based on a quick glance. And in terms of the software, Apple and Samsung have the software test that provided for the public. It's just a matter of contacting them and asking them whether it can be done with such a business.
Okay. And do you have anything that would be built in to mitigate theft? Like phones
yeah.
that are stolen being kind of put into your system?
So the way we're doing it is once the phone is deposited in, it would be locked in a safe inside the machine. I think every day there would be somebody would come to collect those phones. And there would be security cameras around the machine everywhere. So if there was any sort of theft, we would have the proper preparation.
I was more concerned with if I find a phone and I go to your machine and plug it into,
So the way it is, so nowadays, iPhone 7 and 8s, if you see the back, their serial number isn't actually there. So we're going to ask you to manually input the serial number. And so the only way that can be done is if you have access to the phone with the passcode. And the best bet we can do is if you can unlock the phone yourself, then we can. That's enough verification for us.
Good, yeah, that's definitely a concern, right?
Yeah,
I don't want people.
very much so.
There's a lot of theft going on right now.
Exactly,
A lot of people
yeah.
putting it out to Kijiji. So I mean, if you can help mitigate that style, so people aren't just stealing all the phones and depositing.
This is
that.
quite anonymous,
That's
right?
for
When
sure
you deposit it
concern.
in some sense.
And what's the payment kind of approach that you're going to be using, for me to get my funds? Like, are we talking like immediate type of thing?
Yeah,
and
so
how am I going
there's two different ways of doing so. We didn't want to do straight up cash because it's quite unsafe to just leave like that $1,000 in a machine. Someone can easily break that in and just take that out. So we were considering instead of using cash to use an online e-transfer. So you would just type in your email and we would send it from there. And you can verify that you've received the email and everything works and you've accepted the deposit. Or we can give Visa prepaid gift cards. And that would be, you can use that, that's just as normal cash. You can just use that for your own day-to-day activities.
I love the idea. It's a great idea. I think, and I appreciate the amount of detail you've gone into in your presentation in terms of the cost of a machine, for example. How long would you anticipate? I'm curious about the overall startup costs and your overall amount of funding that's going to be needed and where all of it's going to come from in terms of people you're going to need and how long would it take to actually develop a machine and who's going to be doing all that work to get it to that point, and by the time you've actually got enough sales to break even, how much money is it going to take to actually start this business?
So as I mentioned, the machine itself would cost about $20,000, but it's also the labor that we're putting into actually typing all the code. They're not just going to do it all for free. So that would actually cost about $10,000 if the program is successfully made for the combined two programmers and software engineer. But we're also looking at time spent with renting an office facility if we plan to run from there. And afterwards, if the phone box can be made from the manufacturer, then we would spend some more money on marketing. That would be another about $5,000 right there. So in terms of starting up, the cost would be just under $40,000 to $50,000. And we could be, if the code can be done in about a few months, we can start in the first 6 months of operation.
What kind of competitors are you seeing then right now against you in the marketplace? Is
So
there anyone doing similar?
I see competition as other ways of selling your phone. There's obviously, as I mentioned, Kijiji, but there's also companies like Gazelle that are entering the market of selling your phones. But a lot of companies, even like EcoATM, they take the phones just strictly for recycling purposes. Our way is to also not only make profit for ourselves, but give them to developing countries and have a cycle where we can actually sell to consumers back and forth. So that's why we're kind of different than our competition in that way, as opposed to just taking the parts and breaking them up individually and selling the parts. We want to make sure that we want to try to actually sell the phone as a device itself. So, yeah.
So,
oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, would you actually sell the phone at that location so it could be a drop-off center, but also a place that I could actually buy a phone from then too?
No. So we're planning to have after this business gets started, we plan to have an office in Burlington. So every day, the driver would come and take the phones and transfer them to the head office. And then from there, we would have our team trying to resell it online in an online store, or to going to different electronic stores and giving them as bulk so they would pay for more.
Okay.
So what's going to stop? Like, let's assume that your machine gets built and you put it in place and everything's going smoothly. Let's say cell phone stores, kiosks, other people figure out what you're doing. What's to stop someone else from just offering to buy phones to resell without the machine and all the other startup issues around that?
That's the idea. So our focus is more that this is a place where you don't have to. It's more convenient and safe because if you're dealing with a person and dealing with a store, then you have to go to that store specifically, and you have to. It wouldn't be as convenient as just typing it in touch screen and then figuring out your own way of selling your own phone. And a lot of electronic stores nowadays, they tend to want more money for a phone that's really not worth that much. So sometimes some people actually get ripped off by going to electronic stores. The other day I went to Apple and asked them how much it would be to actually replace my phone. I was just randomly switching. I have an iPhone 8. I was like, how much would it be to replace the phone? They said just the iPhone 8 itself, without the screen, would be about $400 right there. And I was quite surprised because that's quite expensive for replacing a phone. So I figured if I can just sell this phone for a higher price and buy a new one, then that would be much more convenient for me. But
okay, thank you.
No worries.
Have you thought about the servicing of these machines? Because I imagine you got people interacting with them, and it's electronic components.
Yeah.
And obviously somebody's visiting the machine every day.
Yeah.
So what happens if it breaks down when I'm trying to sell my phone to?
Okay, that's a good question. So there's going to be a technical support button right on the machine, and then the machine itself, there will be somebody that calls the machine, and you can actually speak them through the cell phone in the machine, and they'll be like, "Sir, how can we help you?" And then if there's such a situation, our tech support team could be there in 15 minutes, and it would just be a minor wait. But we're hoping to run these technical tests every week, so we're trying to minimize as much wait as possible. That's our goal.
And how are you planning to price yourself in the market? Because of course there's those the vendors that buy the phones directly from consumers. So are you trying to be a little giving them a little more than what a electronic store would be, or are you trying to match it exactly?
We're trying to get it a little bit more, just above the actual price of, like, if you see Kijiji, it'd be worth about $550. We're trying to go. That's like the price that they want, but the actual value, if you can see the market, is probably around $400, $450. So we're going to give that market value because we hope that they can pay at least that much, since we're making it very convenient for them to not travel all over the city, and they can just go to their local shopping mall and buy from there.
Right.
But we also don't want to charge them pay them $600 for a phone. That's really not worth that much, because we want to, our hope for profit is 20 to 40%. So we don't want to minimize our profits that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could be some fun pranks. I know that sometimes James gives me his passcode to check his email for him, so I could just quickly go sell his phone and get some lunch money.
Yeah, I'm not leaving that around.
Well, that was a great presentation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Really did a good job. I think the Pythons are really interested in your model.
Thank you.
And I think there really is an interesting idea here. So maybe just a few comments from the Pythons before we move on.
I love the fact that you have numbers behind it. That's excellent. That you know your overhead costs. You kind of have already an idea of what your material is going to sell for. So that's excellent.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I'm looking forward to getting rid of a few cell phones lying around my house, and sort of the cash for gold sort of thing. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I think it's definitely a smart idea. I mean, even just being able to get rid of my phone, knowing that the data will be properly wiped, because I sure as heck can't do it.
Yeah.
I'd probably just give you my phone, right, just to be able to do that. So I think you definitely have a model there, and I love that you're also bringing in, the human aspect and the social responsibility of also developing nations as well, and to be able to bring that side. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
excellent job. I'm excited about it. Actually, I've got a couple of phones at home, and I love the fact that the phones will be going to good purposes, getting properly recycled and going to other countries and things where they need them. And so yeah, excellent job.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Thank you for your time. Thanks. One thing I've learned is high school students, there's so many different ways to reach out and go above and beyond. And it's a lot of people think that it's too much work, but really it's in the end goal it actually helps people. Like a competition like this, I've gotten experience more being able to pitch a business. So if I were to start a business in the future, I actually have experience pitching one. And just dealing with conversing with like such big moguls in the business world, it's quite interesting. So.